Hey, how can I help you?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good.
I got this today. A signed Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth was the greatest ever.
Not the greatest. Ty Cobb was the best baseball player ever.
Joe DiMaggio.
No, Ty Cobb.
DiMaggio.
Over 10 years, batting over 400.
I get nothing for that. I've come down to the pawn shop today to sell my signed photograph of Babe Ruth. It's worth lots of money. I'm hoping to sell it today for $7,000, but I would take as little as $5,500.
Where in the world did you get this?
20 years ago, I was asked to remove boxes from an old lady's home, and before I tossed them in the dumpster, I opened them up, and I found that.
All right. Babe Ruth, he's probably the most famous baseball player of all time. There's the legend that he said, I'm going to hit a home run. I'm going to point to where I'm going to hit it. It sort of looked like he pointed to left field and then hit the ball out there. But there's really no proof or anything like that, but it's a great legend.
Sure is, yeah.
He had some heartburn with Boston.
When Boston traded him, that's what caused the curse of the Bambino. Babe Ruth started his professional baseball career in 1914, and in his 21 years in the majors, he set all kinds of records. First to hit 60 home runs in a season, 714 career homers. He's got records people are still trying to break. It's not really a baseball card, it's just sort of like a photograph. It says from Babe Ruth to Eleanor Ruth Dobson. Do you know who that is?
She came up as a vaudeville actress in the era where he played in baseball.
We have Babe Ruth in one ink and this down here in another ink, which throws up red flags,
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I never noticed that.
Have you ever had the signature checked out?
No.
It's gotta be one of the most forged signatures of all time. When it comes to sports autographs, it doesn't get better than Babe Ruth. So you have to get something like this checked out by a pro. Let me get someone down here to check the signature out. Everything checks out, we'll try and figure out a price.
All right, sounds
Okay.
like a deal. Appreciate it. I'm a little bit nervous because of the two different pens being used, and I'm hoping that at least Babe Ruth is real.
Hey, Drew, how's it going?
Good. Good to see you, Rick. Well, Babe Ruth. The guys call me in when they have specific problems with autograph memorabilia, and I'm the guy for the job. You know, he had a great history. Basically grew up in a boys' school, mainly because he was so unruly, his parents couldn't handle him, you know. I think he was drafted when he was 16 or 17 years old. He had to be adopted to get into the league. And of course, all the home runs, just a legend. Well, Babe Ruth is probably the biggest name for sports memorabilia. His autograph is extremely valuable. Let's take a closer look, see what we have. There's certain areas of Babe Ruth's signature that he always does. It's very consistent, and those are the things you have to look for. We can see that there's a different ink being used for the word from, and also the inscription at the bottom.
Have you ever heard of Eleanor Ruth Dobson?
I know about his two wives he had. He had two daughters. He had only one sister that survived from infancy, and this is not one of them. So it could be just a coincidence, but I don't know who this individual is. This was done after the fact by somebody else. The bottom part is not written by Babe Ruth. One of the things that Babe Ruth always did, he's always wrote his capital R larger than his capital B. The stem of the small case B is one of the tallest structures, and that is occurring here. One of the things the forgers always seem to miss is the epsilon E. It comes off the baseline, and there's a sharp little angle to it. If you take all the evidence in its totality, yeah, this thing's definitely authentic all the way.
All right, that's cool, man.
Sweet.
Well, after looking at all the details of the signature, it's absolutely 100% authentic. However, if you look at the inscription on it, that was definitely written in later by somebody else. So what I would recommend in a situation like this, because it's not a baseball card, I would cut off the bottom part, and it'll look beautiful.
Really? Okay.
So, Drew, what do you think it's worth?
It's a beautiful signature. It's a nice photograph of his later years as a player. I would say anywhere between $2,000, $2,500 retail.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about a fair price.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, Rick. Take care, guys.
So what do you want to do with this?
Sell it.
And how much you want for it?
Negotiable, for sure.
Okay. I'll give you $1,000.
$1,000. Can we do better?
No.
13. Meet in the middle, $1,250.
I'll tell you what, I'll go $1,100 on it. I mean, that's fair. It's gonna sit around here a while.
$1,200.
$1,100 is gonna be it. And I have cash money. $100 bills.
Sure, I'll do it.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
let's
you.
go write this up.
Thank you. $1,100 was less than what I was hoping for, but in the end, I made money in Vegas, so I can't complain.
How's it going?
Hey, pretty good. Got this really cool book I think you'll find fascinating.
Underground Railroad Sketches by E.M. Petite.
So a bunch of little short stories by the slaves that actually used the Underground Railroad.
That's pretty cool. You know, I have an employee who would actually think this was about subways.
There you go. The book is a collection of short stories about the slaves who actually used the Underground Railroad to escape to freedom. To find a book this old on the Underground Railroad is quite unusual. There are very few titles like this from the 19th century. I'd like to get at least $500 for the book.
This is pretty cool. I mean, the Underground Railroad was a really, really dangerous thing. Most people today don't realize the world back then. If you had a team of guys hunting down a runaway slave and they came across a person transporting that slave, they weren't just going to take the slave back and that was the end of it. The way they looked at it is that you just stole their property, and some very bad things would generally happen to you.
Right.
Being a conductor in the Underground Railroad was a very dangerous, risky thing. But these people really, really believed in these things. The Underground Railroad was an incredibly successful operation before the Civil War. Tens of thousands of people made it to safety with all kinds of obstacles in their way. And the fact that someone was able to document this is absolutely great. Do you know if this is a first edition, or was there more than one edition?
From our research, this is the first edition. It's actually signed here by the gentleman who wrote the introduction.
And that is Mr. W. McKinstry? Okay, and he signed it on October 7th, 1895.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you want to sell it.
Yes, I'd like to sell it.
Okay, and how much would you like for it?
I've been seeing prices in the range of $900 to $1,000. I'd like $700.
It sounds reasonable. I just don't know what it's worth. I don't know if there was a lot of these books out at the time. Do you mind if I have someone take a look at it? Because I don't know.
Not a problem.
Just hang out for a little bit, and I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, sounds good. I feel this book is good enough that a second opinion would be fantastic. I think the opinion will agree pretty much with what I'm saying.
What do we got?
The book.
The book.
The book.
Let's take a look. Although I like this, I see McKinstry signed it. McKinstry was the editor of the newspaper that originally requested this memoir be written.
Oh, okay.
In fact, Pettit here, Eber Pettit, he was a major part of the Underground Railroad in Fredonia, New York, and he didn't decide to kind of sit back and write about it. Instead, it was McKinstry who pushed him and said, we need to have a record of what it was like for these slaves who were escaping the South.
Did he interview the slaves?
Well, yes, Pettit would talk with the slaves at the time, and then he would report stories. And in that way, it's very much a documentary record of what the people were going through. If I remember correctly, the first story here tells about a slave who had escaped, and he comes across a barn, and he has no idea whether the person owning that is going to help him or turn him in. And he is so frightened by the prospect that he'll be turned in. And he doesn't blame the people either, because they were going to get a $500 reward for doing that. $500 at the time is huge. And so there are tons of little stories in here that show this just beautiful, bright side of humanity despite these terrible situations. There's a huge range and estimate of how many slaves were able to escape through the Underground Railroad. You see numbers about, on the low end, about 30,000. On the high end, you see numbers as high as 100,000. It is a service to humanity that it has been documented.
Is the book in good shape? I mean, is this a first edition?
This was a pretty small printing. It was printed in Fredonia, so there aren't that many copies. It's a very unusual book to see, which is kind of exciting. As far as these types of books go, it's not in horrible condition.
Okay. The big question, what's it worth?
This book is really important from the perspective of documenting all of this lore that otherwise was only passed down as oral history. Okay, there are a lot of people who would be very interested in this book. I think it would be completely fair to price it around $12.50.
Okay.
Sweet.
Good news for everyone, I hope?
Good news for everyone, I think.
All right.
You're the best.
Happy to help.
Thank you very much.
Bye. This book on the Underground Railroad is a wonderful document for this period This is the type of book that a lot of different collectors would want, but frankly, I could see it ending up in an institution very easily, too.
Can I give you $500? I mean, books aren't like gold coins. They sit around for a while. They really do. It's,
I don't mind leaving something on the bone, but that sounds like quite a bit. You know, what she said, I'm thinking more like 1,000.
well, you came in here, you only wanted 700.
I thought it was a $1,000 book when I came in.
How about 650?
I'm thinking 800.
I'm a person who rarely gives what people are asking on the first try, but I will give you your original asking price of 700 then.
You know, $700 sounds good. I only paid $2 for it.
All right, good for you. Let's go up front. I'll write you up.
Usually I'm lucky if I make $5 or $10 on a book that I find in the estate sale. This was definitely the exception to the rule. When I pulled this book off the shelf, I said, yeah, this is a winner. My gut told me this was a good book.
What do we have here?
These are two engravings from 1739 by John Pine.
These are cool. And this is obviously the Spanish Armada being defeated by England. I imagine the Spanish would print it a little bit different. You know,
They'd like to change history, I'm sure. I was driving through Arkansas, and there in the middle of nowhere was a flea market, and I bought these engravings. They depict the Battle of the Spanish Armada with the British. I'm asking $3,700 for the pair.
This is an event that really, really changed history. In 1588, King Philip II of Spain was going to invade England, and he amassed the largest sailing fleet the world had ever seen. That night, the Spanish ships dropped anchor in a really tight formation. So the English lit a bunch of their own ships on fire and floated them into the Spanish ships. It was pure devastation. What was left of the Spanish Armada tried to sail around England, go back down to Spain, but then a massive storm came along and they were decimated.
Yes.
Since the cavemen, rulers have always wanted to immortalize their victories in some sort of art. And these engravings are a perfect example. It was an incredible amount of work, you know, to create the copper plates for this. What you had to do was, the artist right here, the engraver, you know, artwork here, mirror here. He had to look into the mirror the entire time when he did it because the engraved plate is backwards.
I don't think I could do it.
I mean, it's insanity. What were you looking to do with these?
Well, I would sell them if the price was right.
Okay, so what would that price be?
I've been asking $3,700 for the pair.
Okay. I got a few concerns about these. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if these plates are sitting somewhere and someone could just start making these things again. So I don't know if these were engravings from 1739 or are these engravings from 1979. I want someone to look at them and help me figure out a price on them.
I think we could do that.
Okay, I will be right back.
I think these engravings are something an art collector would like. If I could sell the engravings today, that'll pay for me and my wife to have a little vacation.
They're pretty damn neat. I just don't know if these things were made in 1739 or 1979.
Okay. You mind if I turn them towards me?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, check them out.
So, these were charts that were turned into tapestries. They were commissioned by the Lord Admiral Effingham, who was in charge of the entire English fleet. There were 10 tapestries originally.
Okay.
Now, these etchings were taken from drawings from a man named Clement Lempiere. Lempiere was the head of the drawing room in the Tower of London. And then John Pine went back and did the engravings, which were then published in a book.
Okay.
The most interesting thing about the engravings is the fact how many artists were involved in the production of them and the period of time. The level of workmanship that goes into these kind of images, you very, very rarely see anymore in the modern works.
It's in pretty damn good shape.
They're in a very good state. They do have stains here. This one's actually a little bit nicer. You don't have as bad of creasing. You don't have any kind of staining on them.
So these are the ones printed in 1739.
These are absolutely authentic. The amount of work to fake these would not be worth it. At this point in time, it would cost a fortune to do that hand coloring.
Okay. All right, and so what do you think they're worth?
I would put these at right around $1,500 a piece retail.
So $3,000 total?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. These particular engravings are very rare, especially in this condition. I think it's something the shop can make money from.
Okay, so what's your best price?
About 3,000.
So I'm going to buy them for you from 3,000 and hopefully sell them for 3,000. It makes no sense to me. You understand what I'm saying?
What do you think?
1,200 bucks.
For the pair?
1,200 bucks for the pair. I think that's fair. You know, they're going to sit around for a long time.
Tell you what, I gotta have 1,500 bucks for the pair. I gotta have it.
I'll give you 14.
I'll do it.
All right, sweet. I'll meet you right over there and we'll do some paperwork.
All right.
Cool, I love these.
I paid $50 for both engravings, and so I'm gonna take this $1,400 and hightail it out of here before it stays here.
Earlier, a chum spotted an ad for a World War II fighter plane that's up for sale. So my dad and I decided to check it out.
Wow, this is cool.
So this is it?
This is our 1942 North American AT-6 Texan. You guys interested in buying this airplane?
Both of us have been talking about getting our pilot's license, and
I bet I could do a pretty good job of crashing this thing.
The guys came down from the pawn shop to look at my AT-6 Texan. The reason I want to sell this airplane is my wife and I would like to build a house. I'm asking $185,000 for this airplane. It's absolutely worth every penny of it.
so it's a 1942.
It flew in World War II and the Korean War.
This one did?
Yeah, it did.
So did it ever get shot?
No, but it actually was a gunnery trainer. They actually had a gun mounted right here, and the pilots could actually fire the guns. So in World War II, this was the airplane the government used to train all our pilots. The Tuskegee Airmen all flew this airplane down in Alabama. So it's a very famous airplane.
Dominating the skies is one of the things that has made the United States military the strongest force for over 100 years. It's pretty badass. This plane was used to train the best pilots in the world.
It has a newly overhauled engine.
Looks like a bunch of Harley motors put together.
It does, and this thing actually sounds like 9 Harleys all running. It's a 9-cylinder, 650 horsepower.
So how fast is it?
Oh, this airplane will cruise at 200 miles an hour, and the structure inside is a roll cage. So if they ever flipped it by accident on the ground, it would protect you.
Can we look at the cockpit?
I actually can't wait to see what it's like behind the controls of this thing. It's bigger than I thought it'd be inside here.
There you go.
The person getting trained would be in the back or the front?
The instructor would be in the back seat. It's fully dual controlled, so there's the throttle, stick, and all the flight instruments are also in the back of the airplane as well as the front.
So you could actually give me flight lessons in this thing, huh?
That's what it was built for. Now, go ahead and place your feet on the rudder pedals there. Attaboy. And that steers the tail wheel that's on the ground.
So what's this trigger for right here?
You just shot the guns. Those 30 cals were blazing.
I mean, it would definitely be cool to be flying this thing in World War II shooting Nazis. I think I like the way I look at this thing. And who knows, it might actually make a great trainer for me and my dad. So how much do you want for it, my man?
$185,000.
I got a buddy who's a Navy fighter pilot. Do you mind if I have him come down and take a look at it?
You know, if you think he's qualified, I think that's good enough. Let's bring it on. I have no question about the caliber of this airplane. I'm ready for this.
This is my buddy Matt.
I'm a Marine Corps F-18 pilot with 18 years of experience, a graduate of the Naval Fighter Weapons School, Top Gun, and former U.S. Navy Blue Angel pilot. So, Rick, you really want to try and buy this airplane?
I want to get an airplane. I'm just trying to figure out the right one.
Well, the Texan's an awesome plane. It basically was the workhorse to train all the cadets in World War II. This aircraft was great for training not only our fighter pilots, but also our bomber pilots, the B-17, the B-24 pilots. During World War II, we dominated the skies, whether that's Europe or over in the Pacific region. This aircraft helped train those pilots to get to that final step, to where they flew that P-51 or that F-4. So after this, it's ready for combat and, you know, potentially going in harm's way. You guys have any concerns?
How well does it fly? Would it be good for me?
Well, you know, it's a great trainer plane.
I know, but you're trying to sell it to me?
It is, but that tail wheel right there makes it a little difficult.
So is it harder to land in a one with the tail wheel?
You got it. Landing a tail dragger, that airplane can swap ends pretty quickly. Where it doesn't have the tricycle gear, where you have a nose gear and 2 tail gear, you actually have it in the back. It's a little unstable with that. Landing a tail dragger is kind of like going from learning to ride your bike, where you have training wheels on it, and then all of a sudden you take those training wheels off.
Basically, we have like no aviation skills. We're about to start school, so.
You might have to start off on something a little less powerful and a little easier to fly.
I thought we could learn to fly this thing, but clearly that's not a good idea. But I still love this plane, so if I can get it for a good price, I can resell it and make a profit.
Before I can give you a price range on this aircraft, we need to do a visual inspection.
Do your stuff.
You bet. How many hours do you have on your engine?
You know, it only has about 20 hours since the engine has been completely overhauled.
The engine's on here, 1,600 hours. And as you get closer to that mark, you need to overhaul, and that is a big ticket item. So that's actually a plus. On the front, he's going to have a spinner. Not all Texans have a spinner. It adds about $5,000 in value.
Just for that little cap on the front?
Just for here, the spinner on here.
Protects it from elements, dirt, rust, and things like that.
That's why airplanes are so damn weird, because it just doesn't look like it would cost $5,000.
Yeah.
Come on up, have a seat.
He's got a clean cockpit setup. This aircraft is fairly basic to fly. Landing and takeoff is a little hard with the tail wheel, but literally with the stick, it's up, down, left, right to maneuver the aircraft. You've got a pretty easy throttle. So the last thing to do here is to take this airplane flying. Dennis and I should go airborne.
Yeah, let's take her up.
All right, let's do it.
Do your stuff.
I'm super excited to fly this aircraft. I spent most of my time in jets, and this will be really kind of a throwback. It'll be fun to fly this. Clear. I've inspected the exterior and the interior of the plane. We've looked at the logbooks, so I'm really excited to fly the aircraft.
I wonder what it's like to just hop in any plane you see and be able to fly it.
I don't know, but I think it would be pretty cool.
Okay, you ready to go? Okay. Here we go, man. Now just stick man in neutral like that. Steer it up with your rudder.
I thought the aircraft performed very well on takeoff.
Okay, angle up 45 degrees. Look how it turns around. Oh, wow.
We did a bunch of aerobatics. We did a couple loops. Barrel rolls.
Oh my God.
Maybe one day I'll be able to fly it.
Aircraft flew pretty awesome.
So now, we want to keep the nose straight. Here it comes. Right, there it is. And put this little braking action.
Apparently it works. So how was it?
Awesome. We had a blast. Good aircraft. Dennis, you've done a nice job restoring that. Oh. It's actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
All right, so what do you think it's worth?
Right now, current market, what we're looking at, you know, I think it's fair value. It's about $170,000 on the spot.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair estimate.
So what does it cost to own one of these things?
first thing is you need to hangar it. That's about $300 a month. Then this aircraft needs to fly. It needs to get lubricated, oil through the systems, fuel, everything's about $275 an hour to fly it.
Seems like this thing's gonna cost me $1,000 a month just to own until I can sell it.
Yeah, that's a safe number.
All right, well, thanks, Matt.
Okay, you bet. Great to see you.
Matt, you're the man, dude.
Okay, see you.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Nice job, Dennis.
So what is your bottom dollar?
I'd look at something around 165,000.
You know, we sort of came out here on a whim. So on a whim, I'll give you 140 grand.
Yeah, it's getting warm.
I mean, if I buy it off, it's gonna sit around for a while. It's gonna cost me money to own it till I resell it or figure out what the hell I'm gonna do with it.
Well, you know, it's a vintage and a classic airplane. There's so much heritage with this, and it appreciates in value.
It's definitely something I'm interested in.
You know, with a 157, kind of warm it up a little bit for you?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I'd go like 140 on it if you take it.
You gave me 150, we'd probably have a deal today. Yeah.
As a businessman, I will go 140.
You know, if you come up just a little bit, at 145, we'd be shaking hands.
I'll tell you what, my man. I'm gonna go back and do a little bit more research. If I think we can pay you 145 for it, I'll give you a call and we'll do it. But right now, I'm gonna hold you at 140.
Boy, we were really close, so why don't we just think about that a little bit, and maybe there'll be a phone ringing between here and Vegas.
Have a good one, man.
All right, thanks a lot, guys, for coming out. I'm shocked that they didn't take the offer.
I'm bummed we got that close and couldn't make a deal. But I'm glad it was me and Corey that got to check out the plane. If we had sent Chum and the old man, they would have wasted the whole day playing around.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
I have an 1870 tooth extractor.
That looks freaky.
Huh. Got any good dentist stories?
No.
Open your mouth up and I'll give you a good dentist story.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a family doctor and I love medical history and collecting. At first it looks a little scary, but it's very similar to modern day instruments. I am hoping to sell my tooth extractor for no less than $150.
So where in the world did you get this?
Oh, I got it from a collector back east.
And how do we know the age of it?
There's an inscription on there saying J. Martin, Albany, New York. James Martin had a surgical supply company, and he made instruments back then, circa 1870.
So you're getting rid of the collection?
No, I want to get more things.
I mean, there's only one way to pull a tooth, and that's to grab a pair of pliers and yank it out.
Actually, it's a little bit more delicate than that. After they would use the elevators to bring that tooth up, you would kind of like a pliers clamp. And then you would do a rocking motion and lift up the tooth.
Sounds horrible. I can honestly say I've never seen one of these in the shop before. But as cool as it is, antique medical equipment can be a tough sell. So I hope she's flexible on the price. Any idea of what you're looking to get?
$300.
It's cool. I don't know if it's $300 cool.
This is an old piece from the 1870s. It has the markings on it for verification. Collectors will go crazy for something like this.
Well, if you ever need a job, let me know. I can go like 120.
How about 200?
Or about 175. I mean, there is a market out there. I got a feeling it'll sit around for a while.
180 and we got a deal.
All right, deal. Chum, you want to write her up?
Yep.
When he offered me $150, I was excited because that means he realized it was a good piece as well. And I was able to make a little more money than I expected.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good.
What do we got?
I got a 1967 autographed Chicago Bears football.
The Bears!
That's right.
Hi!
I came to the pawn shop today to try to sell my football. Money would be just a nice little bonus from holding on to for 45 years. I'm putting it at $10,000 mark.
So how'd you get it?
My uncle gave me the ball. It was given to him by Ronnie Bull, a Chicago player, at a banquet. You can see him handing it there.
60s pro football wasn't at the level of college football yet. I mean, if you would read some of the programs they had from the games, there'd be giant ads talking about, could local businessmen in the area please give the players jobs during the off-season so they don't have to leave town to find work.
Right.
It isn't like today where this guy would be at a minimum making $4 million a season.
Right.
There's a story about a guy on the Packers who would actually come and do the maintenance on the field during the off-season. This is cool because it comes from a time when pro football was just starting to explode in popularity. And back then, those guys didn't have all the protective gear they have now, so those guys were grinding it out all season long. So this one should have Dit Buckiss or...
Yes, he's on there. The big name to me is George Halas because this is the last year that George Halas was a head coach. And he started in 1920, and this is 1967.
I mean, he was pretty much one of the guys that helped start the NFL into what it is,
Sure
right?
was. Sure was.
And it's got Gale Sayers and Brian Piccolo on it, right?
Both of them.
Those are pretty desirable. Brian Song, the movie, everybody knows it. I mean, it's a huge movie. Brian Piccolo gets cancer, and it's about him and Gale Sayers' relationship. Brian Piccolo's signature is pretty rare. He died at the age of 26 and became a legend because of his story. Pair that with his friend Gale Sayers' signature and a bunch of other Hall of Famers, this thing could be worth a lot of money. So what'd you want to do with it, man?
Sell it.
Any particular amount you're looking for?
Just from what I've seen on the internet and what I put on it was $10,000.
You know, here are some of the concerns I have with it. We have a picture there, obviously, but we have absolutely no authentication for the ball. Do you mind if I give a buddy of mine a call? He can kind of appraise it.
Sure, that's fine with me.
All right, man, I'll give him a call.
All right, thank you. There's no way that these can be fake because my uncle received the ball from Ronnie Bull, a player on the Chicago Bears at the time. So yeah, I feel good. I feel very good about it.
1967 Bears, not their greatest year, but
No other team in the NFL has more wins than the Chicago Bears. The 1967 season was absolutely huge, but it wasn't because of their record. They barely had a winning season, but that was the last year of an era for them. Coach George Halas, after 40 years, that was his last year coaching. The 1967 squad also had some marquee players in Dick Butkus, Gale Sayers, and what became Brian Piccolo as well. The Chicago Bears are one of the two oldest teams who are still playing in the NFL, and as far as fan bases go, they have one of the most loyal fan bases of any team out there. What concerns do you have?
there's a lot of signatures on this ball. Plus, I don't know what to price it as because they're relatively famous players.
Absolutely.
And as we all know, Brian Piccolo isn't around anymore.
All right, so right here, first off the bat, we have Gale Sayers. He went to the Pro Bowl 5 consecutive years, had 2 rushing titles, and is the youngest guy ever to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. From there, we go on to Dick Butkus, who's in the Hall of Fame as well. Right in the middle, George Halas. Legendary coach, probably one of the most influential and important people in football history. Now, to the left of his name, right here we have Brian Piccolo, who at this time he was just a backup to Gale Sayers. But over time, he would become immortal thanks largely to Brian's Song, the movie, which makes him, of everybody on this whole ball, the most important signature on here. Brian Piccolo came to the Chicago Bears as a backup to Gale Sayers. Unfortunately, he had a run-in with cancer and passed away at the age of 26. Brian's Song came out in the early 70s, and he became an instant phenomenon amongst fans. Now, if we were dealing with an official ball, mint condition signatures, we'd be talking several $1,000s. Now, looking at some of the signatures, we have to determine whether or not these are even authentic ones. With George Halas, the 2 key characteristics are the G in George and the H in Halas. These signatures are very difficult to fake. And it's the same thing on Dick Butkus. I mean, his D almost looks like an N. A lot of people say, hey, who's this guy, Nick Butkus? But it's got a very distinct signature. So those signatures, they're 100% spot on, exactly what I want to see in a 1967 ball. Now, the other signatures, you really got to focus on the characteristics of the autograph compared against other ones that have been proven to be authentic. And if we compare a Brian Piccolo signature here to the one on the football, primarily in the B, how it forms, and how at the end here, the L and the O dips off, these are contrasting signatures and very typical for what you see in a clubhouse signature. They were signed by somebody else other than the athlete.
What about the Gale Sayers?
Gale Sayers, the signatures I'm familiar with, it's a very robust full letter G. This one just isn't characteristic of other Gale Sayers I've seen from the late part of the 1960s. So the Sayers, like the Piccolo, in my opinion, these are clubhouse autographs. This is very common, and all it really is, somebody knows the signature and does their best interpretation of it to try to make it look as authentic as possible.
I never heard of that before, and here I had the ball for 45 years. I thought all those signatures are legit on that ball.
It still has authentic autographs. George Halas and Dick Butkus, that's 2 solid Hall of Famers, and are always gonna have value. Considering the kind of ball it's on, which ones are real versus which ones are clubhouse, you're looking at maybe tops $1,000.
That's a big difference.
Right.
Jeremy, man, I appreciate you coming in.
Anytime, Corey.
All right, see you later.
Sadly, in sports memorabilia, it's a part of my job to have to break people's hearts sometimes. I will stand behind my opinion in that these are clubhouse signatures.
All right, man, so you heard my guy. He says it's worth probably around $1,000. I mean, I got a feeling this is gonna sit around for years. I'd offer you around $100 for it.
So I'll just keep holding on to it.
Right on, man, appreciate it.
I feel pretty let down. I think clubhouse signatures are very deceitful. I'd like to meet the people that do that and give them a piece of my mind. Does somebody want to buy football?
Hey, what can I help you with?
I got this cannon, toy cannon, I think. I'm just curious. It's kind of like to see what it's worth and maybe try to sell it.
That's a pretty sweet toy. Can you imagine terrorizing your sister's Barbie collection with this bad boy? Throw a G.I. Joe on top and just right in.
Fire in the hole!
I decided to come to the pawn shop today. I found this miniature cannon at a garage sale and wanted to bring it over and possibly sell it. If it's worth some money, you know, why not take the money and run?
Where in the world did you get this?
Garage sale.
Do you know anything about it, or?
No, the people said it was in their family. They didn't want it anymore. And
okay.
Every now and then I go around to these things, and it just looked really cool. And I thought I'd pick it up. Thought my kids would get a kick out of it as something to have around the house.
I think it's really old. Those are hand-cut threads right there, which means probably before the 1830s, 1840s.
Wow.
All the wood is oak, and what's got me intrigued here, this is real bronze right here. Okay, and something this old made out of bronze was expensive. Bronze was not cheap. It was expensive metal, and it's hard to work with. There's certain things I can tell you about this just by looking at it. How and when it was made, that it was expensive, and that I've never seen one before. But that doesn't put me in a great position to make a smart buy. So what do you want to do with it?
If it's worth something, then I know what I paid for it, so I may sell it.
You know, I have no idea what it's worth, and I need to know how old it is. Those are my two big concerns with the thing. But it looks like a toy to me, but it's also like a gun. And I'm just trying to figure out who I should call. If I should call a really old gun expert, or should I call a really old toy expert?
Whichever's going to give me the most value.
Well, let me call up some buddies, figure out if anybody knows anything about this, and I'll try and get them in here tomorrow. Would that be good with you?
Sure, that's great.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
This thing is really neat, but I need to know what it is for sure before I make an offer. So I need to make some phone calls and get someone down here to take a look at it. Well, this is it. It looks old.
Awesome. I own Tortuga Trading Incorporated, and I specialize in antique arms and armor. Just when you think you've seen it all, something else comes into play and just blows everything else out of the water. So where did you get this?
Garage sale.
You got this at a garage sale?
Yeah, thought my kids would get a real kick out of having something like this as a toy.
This is definitely not a toy. It may look like a toy, but it's not. This little cannon can pack the same punch as a pistol or a musket. If you were on the business end of one of these things, it would definitely kill you. Actually, this dates to the 18th century. And just the form of the barrel, and especially being it of bronze, this is literally a miniature cannon barrel. This was more for instruction. It would be like a military officer trying to teach his kids the principles about firing a cannon.
So this would be like a lesson point where you can teach me how to use a big cannon from learning.
Exactly. And you know, the other part of this is that these were really loud noisemakers. So sometimes even on shipboard, they would have signal cannons. We don't know where this was used, but it could have been used on a ship as a signal gun.
So you think this thing will fire?
We need to really look at it closely beforehand, but I don't see why not.
Okay. And what do you think it's worth?
You know, everything looks great. It looks all authentic. There's hardly any restoration. I mean, there's maybe a newer screw put in there, but very, very minor. I'm going to say in the ballpark of probably 2,000 and up.
Okay.
You know, this is just a really wonderful thing. This gives guys like me hope that there's still stuff out there that can be found.
Thanks for coming in, Sean. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
When the expert said it was worth $2,000, I was like, cha-ching, I can't believe that. I've paid $50 for this thing.
Okay, so what do you want to do with it? You want to pawn it or sell it?
No, I want to sell it.
So how much you want for this thing?
Well, Sean said $2,000. I'd like to get $1,500 for it.
I'm not going to go $1,500. I'm thinking more like $700. I mean, this thing's going to sit around a long, long time before I sell it.
You don't know that. I mean, I understand it may sit, but it may not, too.
I got to resell this thing, and it's not something that just people walk in here every day wanting.
I'm 15. What's the best you think you could do?
The best I'm going to do is $800.
That's good. I mean, I paid $50 for it. That's a hell of a return. That's a deal.
Yes.
Okay. $800. I'm going to write them up.
Let's go write this stuff over there, man.
Great, thanks.
Rick, we got to go test this thing out.
I'm really glad I bought this antique cannon. It's going to look great in the display case. And eventually, I think I'm going to get a really good price for it. And if I can actually get it to fire, it might even be worth more.
All right, remember, these things were instructional devices. And, you know, even though it looks like a toy, it really isn't. This will definitely kill you if you are on the business end of it. So it's not something to take lightly.
Okay.
Don't let the size fool you. This thing could cause some serious damage. We're gonna load this thing up. Gonna put about 50 grains of black powder in here.
50 grains?
50 grains. Then the projectile. I'm gonna load it down, pack it in good. Then we're gonna put a little bit of priming powder on the touch hole. And then I'm gonna use this as a lens stock like they did in the day and have a burning fuse on the end. Gives me some distance just to be on the safe side.
All right.
So when I touch this thing off, we need to be far away. Because this thing hasn't been fired in, you know, who knows how long.
I got to admit, I'm a little nervous. I just hope it doesn't blow up in our faces.
Okay, guys, here we go.
Yeah!
Nice.
Look at that.
That was
so what do you
great.
think?
It's definitely not for kids, Sean.
Absolutely not.
Or chums.
I think I proved myself by now.
Thanks a lot, Sean. It was a blast.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you.
This thing is amazing. Who knew this little thing could pack such a wallop?